Welcome to our 2023 Equity Conference, Conspiring for an Equitable Future Building a Social Justice Bridge. I'm Charles Toombs, African-American man, bald-headed with glasses. I'm wearing a sweater and a sweatshirt because it's cold in my office this morning. I use pronouns he and they. Today, we want to also recognize that it is International Women's Day. We are also in Women's History Month. And I appreciate all of you taking the time out of your day to join us in our Equity Conference, which is a real heart and soul of CFA. I want to again thank all of you, and I will now transition to Aparna Sinha.
Good morning, everyone. I'm going to read the land acknowledgement. We want to acknowledge that we gather as the California Faculty Association on the traditional land of the indigenous people, past and present, and honor with gratitude the land itself and the people who have stewarded it throughout the generations. This calls us to commit to continuing to learn how to be better stewards of the land we inhabit as well. To recognize the land is an expression of gratitude and appreciation to those whose territory we reside on, and a way of honoring the indigenous people who've been living and working on the land from time immemorial. It is important to understand the long-standing history that has brought us to reside on the land and to seek to understand our place within that history. Land acknowledgements do not exist in a past tense or historical context. Colonialism is a current ongoing process, and we need to build our mindfulness of our present participation. Acknowledging the land is an important Indigenous protocol that we are honoring here today. To find the native lands on which you reside, I encourage you to look up on the link. I live in Sacramento, and Sacramento is the ancestral homeland of Nisenan, Maidu, Miwok, and Miwok people.
And we're going to continue on with our CFA practices. So I'm going to ask us all to get grounded in. So we're going to ground in with a practice called the Awe of Community from Decker Keltner at Greater Good Berkeley. I invite you all to find a nice, comfortable, safe place where you can sit or stand in a relaxed position with a nice posture. If it's comfortable for you, please close your eyes, rest your hands somewhere at ease, maybe on your knees. Just taking a nice, deep breath in. And breathing out, follow the air through your nose and throat. Another nice, deep breath, expanding your rib cage and your chest. And breathe out. And on the next breath in, just feel relaxation. Settle in your face, in your shoulders, in your hands. As you breathe out, let that relaxation move to your legs, to your feet. On this next breath in, I'd like you to think about a community you're a part of, a small work community, spiritual community, neighborhood group, whatever it is, some group of people you're a part of. Get a sense in your mind of being with that community, at work, out at play, in a class. Now I'd like you to reflect for a minute or two just about the faces of the different people in this community, their eyes, their smiles. Maybe you'll hear the tone of their voice, their laughs. We're bringing into awareness just the images of these people who are part of your community. Now I want you to think about the remarkable quality of communities that these separate individuals, so different in many ways, are really a whole. Breathing in, imagine how each in their own way, each person is contributing to this sense of whole, this sense of community. Some may contribute quietly, others more vocally. Everybody contributes to this community. Now, think about how everybody is connected. We're connected in our physiology and our minds, our thoughts, our feelings, spreading through community. Think about how we're connected and mutually influencing each other. Now focus your attention again on your breath and on the fact that as part of a community, the individual shares something in common with others. There's something about our values or purpose or desires that brings us all together. And then finally, having really developed this very rich sense of community, imagine yourself within this network of individuals connected and get a sense of what threads we share with each other, how we're connected together. Feel those threads, how we overlap, how we influence each other, and how we're all interconnected. As we close out, think about all the ways in which we're interconnected with others at work, in family, in communities, all connected. And as we sit with this feeling, let's start to waken our body by taking a few final deep breaths, the stretches that we need to feel centered and good in our bodies. And when you're ready, gently open your eyes and rejoin us here in this space.
Thank you, Talitha. I would like to share our interruption practice statement. So, as a part of our continuing commitment to racial justice work, when we experience examples of racial narratives, racism, or whiteness in our meetings, or as we conduct our business, we will speak up. This means we can interrupt the meeting and draw the issue to one another's attention. We will do this kindly with care and in good faith. Further, as we engage interruptions, we will take an intersectional approach, reflecting the fact that white supremacy and racism operate in tandem with interlocking systems of oppression, of colonialism, class, cis heteropatriarchy, and ableism. This statement is a reminder that we commit to do this in the service of ending the system of racial oppression. And with that, I'd like to pass it over to Audrina.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning. I'm going to just share some helpful information for you. And that is that this session is being recorded, will be available to you later in a few weeks on the CFA website. And also dropped for you will be the landing page, which has a host of information about the conference there for you. I encourage you to check it out and use that as your point of reference for the next few days of our conference, which ends Saturday afternoon. And now I pass it on to Charles. Well, not quite, hold on. Let's see. So I should introduce myself. My name is Audrina Redmond. I am Director of Programs for CFA's Anti-Racism and Social Justice work. If I had to describe myself, I would say that I am African-American, brown-skinned with some cream and natural sugar. I have short salt and pepper hair, and I'm wearing my glasses and a necklace made of seeds with a centerpiece that's shaped like a heart. Very, very happy and excited to be here this week. I am thrilled to introduce again to you Charles Toombs, who's CFA President and Professor of Africana Studies at San Diego State, to open us up with a brief description of how we got here, partner.
Thank you, Audrina. I don't know that I'll do the description of how we got here because it would take quite a bit of time. What I will say, though, is that since as an organization, we moved to anti-racism and social justice work, we have been doing quite a bit. Some of our recent work that we're doing now really focuses on the broad goal of eliminating systemic inequity in the CSU and other systemic oppressions in the CSU. We also extend our work to the state of California. and support legislation that is anti-racism in its focus for the common good. During the summer of 2020, after the murder of George Floyd, we issued anti-Black racism demands, and we also began work on our plan for what the CSU should be. We have a document, Our Way Forward, in which we have a number of demands that require action, both on our local campuses and at CSU in Long Beach. We currently are spending effort to work on creating a different culture on our campus concerning police. We know that police are involved in a lot of business that they should not be involved in, and we are looking forward to alternatives to campus police. We also are really focusing on how do we end anti-Black racism in the CSU. We know that if we can get that ended, a lot of the other systemic oppressions for others will end as well. So that's some of our work that we're doing, and I could mention a lot more, but we also are doing our preparations to reopen on bargaining. Yesterday, as a sort of a pre-conference event, we held a bargaining institute in which we shared with attendees what the bargaining process is, how they can help, and how, as we did with our last contract negotiations, we will be reopening through an anti-racism and social justice lens on 4 big articles, and that is salary, workload, paid leave. Particularly, we're interested in a semester off for parents and caregivers, and health and safety. We want to include in our contract language that will address the need for alternatives to campus police. So look at our website and you will see a lot of the work we're doing, both with the legislature and with others. I want to thank all of you again for attending today's opening session of the Equity Conference. Encourage your colleagues to attend, send the registration link to them. The conference goes all the way until Saturday. And now I want to thank some important people. We would not have this conference if these folks did not dedicate their time and expertise. First, I want to thank our tri-chairs who came back this year to do it again, and that is Nicholas Centino, Talitha Martin, and Aparna Sinha. Of course, the Equity Conference is sponsored through our Council for Racial and Social Justice, and I want to recognize the 2 AVPs who lead that council with such vision and expertise, Sharon Elise and Chris Cox. There are always people behind the scenes that do a great deal of work. Ardrina Redmond has been the staff supporting so many different equity conferences over the years, and her expertise, leadership, vision, and keeping us on track is just always appreciated, and she gives us so much. I want to thank Jamila Bellinger, our administrative assistant in our Sacramento office. They were at all of our equity planning meetings, doing lots of work behind the scene. Kiara Kiki Lee, of course, we cannot do any of this without you. So I want to thank you so much. It's a great deal of work that you do. You're working almost 24/7 sometimes. And Shantae Browley, our Director of Governance and Operations. We also want to give thanks to Nicola Walters, who is our M&O Chair and the M&O Committee, for their help in promoting the conference as part of their Hustle campaign. And I want to thank all of the interpreters that will be helping us throughout the week. I know you're going to have an experience this week filled with lots of joy, learn, appreciate, take information back to your campuses. And I'll turn it over to Ardrina. Thank you all so much.
Appreciate you, Charles. And definitely appreciate CFA and CFA's officers and CFA's leaders for the ongoing support of our anti-racism and social justice work. And to that effect, I'm really thrilled to be bringing up next our AVP, which is Associate Vice President South for the Council for Racial and Social Justice, Dr. Sharon Leese, and our Associate Vice President North, Chris Cox, who have so much to tell us about the structure of this thing. What is the Council for Racial and Social Justice? And, explain to folks how we got here.
Well, let me start off introducing myself. I am Sharon Elise. I am a Black woman. I go by she, her pronouns. I am a lighter shade of brown, but my affect is blackety black, black. What else can I say? I am often smiling. Just whatever my mood, I may still be smiling. Fair warning. And I think that's good about me, other than I'm wearing a turtleneck and a sweater. Like Charles, it's kind of chilly here for a San Diego County person. We're not used to it getting below 60s regularly. So, and I'm just so thrilled to see the Equity Conference roll around again. And let me now pass it over to my sidekick, Chris Cox.
Good morning, Sharon. Good morning, everybody. My name is Chris Cox. I am also a Black male. I'm a Black man sitting on a couch that you can't see because it looks like I'm sitting on a train trestle. I have long hair that's actually dreadlocks behind me. I'm currently wearing glasses. And I also generally, excuse me, pardon me, I'm trying to be as healthy as I can. I generally have a smile on my face for the most part. And I'm also wearing a sweatshirt because it is still cold weather here in San Jose, California, a little north of San Diego, but it's still cold for us too. I have a nice comfortable sweatshirt that is a couple of shades of gray. It's kind of blackish and gray that fits the weather outside of my window. It's great to be here with you all at the Equity Conference that has come around again. And I think maybe we can just get started talking a little bit about the work of the council itself. And so the Council of Racial and Social Justice within CFA is something that exists as part of an evolution, a broader evolution of our work being focused on issues of racial and social justice. And so in the last several years, we started once upon a time as a Council for Affirmative Action. And we have transitioned from that time period to become the Council for Racial and Social Justice, which is where we really center anti-racism work in all of the work that we do within CFA. Every aspect of our work as a union now is impacted by our broader vision of having a racially and socially just union, a racially and socially just CSU system, and a racially and socially just California. Sharon, would you like to take it from there?
Sure. I'll spare you, Chris. We can grab some air. So Council for Racial and Social Justice, as Chris mentioned, has evolved from the Council for Affirmative Action as we decided to center our anti-racism and social justice work in all things. And many of us have the experience based on our social identities that issues come up as we enter the room. But we like to take the approach that the issues were always there, because these forms of oppression are systemic and they're interlaced in our culture and for all of us. And so you could see this explored in one of the workshops that we first developed, which addressed our implicit biases we found we all had. It's called unconscious bias. And in that workshop, we began introducing people on all our different campuses to the idea that we could address these biases, get in touch with how they might influence the ways we interact with each other, and really begin to imagine a different way of being and interacting. With the work of taking on this lens, it means that we want to apply it, as Chris was saying, in all of our work. And this is quite apparent in our recent bargaining efforts, where some of our best wins were not just the bread and butter issues, right? Salary, workload, but issues like addressing the bias many of us encounter in our regular reviews. These are supposed to be based in peer review, but often we do not have peers of the same social identities reviewing us. And this is also apparent when we read student opinions of our teaching, that often we see bias in those reviews. And so we were able to finally, after many months of arguing, to get CSU management to acknowledge that bias does exist in our reviews and in these student opinion polls that often we are simply too reliant upon. And so we encourage faculty to rebut the bias in those reviews. We were also able to get them again through struggle. And this is what they said, we struggle to use these terms like cultural taxation. But it was named decades ago. And it was named because it does exist as part of our working conditions. And this falls most heavily on those faculty who are women and or people of color and or LGBTQIA+, because we have students who seek us out to mentor and advise them based on, a match they see in social identities that they think might make us, better able to work with them without bias, right? So that's just a little taste of some of the work that we've done. We've developed a number of workshops, implicit bias, the interruption workshop, where you're introduced to scenarios. These are drawn from real life circumstances on our campuses. And so when we come out to you and we say, we want your stories, this is how we use them. They become part of our work. Our work is grounded always in the actual realities of faculty work experience. And you know what we say, faculty working conditions are student learning conditions. So CFA's work is always going to work to the betterment of the quality of education for students. And we always keep that correlation, that relationship in our minds. We always want to do relational organizing. So we built this workshop, Interrupting Racism, out of scenarios that came from your stories, and we enact these with each other and practice how can we interrupt that when that comes up. Many times we have learned things like politeness that silence us from saying something, even when we see some egregious behavior. And so we are trying to really empower faculty when they see something to say something and to practice this with each other so that we become skilled in doing so. when the country went crazy over critical race theory, which I find particularly funny because I teach it to graduate students and advanced undergrads, and I cannot imagine a kindergartner getting it. But when people went crazy and said, oh my God, critical race theory is coming to your town, CFA created a critical race theory workshop so that we can all as faculty, even if this is nowhere near our area of expertise, we can understand this as it pops up maybe in the classroom or in conversations with publics about what is going on your campus. Do you have that Black studies? Do you have that critical race theory? And it's just so interesting that right as we make gains in ethnic studies in our curriculum, that this attack kicks up again. This has been such a decades-long struggle, folks, and we have been so successful in California, but we see this tide of really hate and intolerance. And we see these very things that we know are so critical to our students and to our work being weaponized against us. So we push back by creating workshops like critical race theory. And another one which we recently created, and I really want to thank Aparna Sinha, one of our tri-chairs, because she's been very instrumental in the work on critical race theory. And the other one is understanding privilege. So we like to focus oftentimes on the oppression side of things, and we forget the mighty lift that some folks get. All the things they don't have to worry about. Peggy McIntosh did some of this work with understanding white privilege, and white people were awed. Oh my gosh, the Band-Aid doesn't match everybody's skin? Wow. It's a little deeper than that, though. And so we should look at these things because as we sit together to talk about what we need to improve our working conditions, to improve student learning conditions, we also need to recognize that we come with different histories into this workplace. Some of us with histories of accumulated disadvantage, some of us with histories of accumulated privilege. And this impacts the lens we take to campaigns like No Harm, Disarm, the SQE campaign to address the ways that policing on campuses actually strikes terror in the hearts of those of us who've been system impacted, right? Who get spot frisked, what has happened just recently to one of our officers, G. Chris Brown, leaving Sacramento Airport. Now, mind you, there's a white man 2 lanes over in the same TSA area, just cussing and screaming and losing his mind. Here's Chris. If you know G. Chris Brown, you know he's dressed matching and, to the T, looking uber professional. And he gets, of course, randomly selected. And then being a criminology professor, he says, so you're going to do this and this. And right away, the guy lost his mind. Oh, he's talking about, naming body parts and all of this. So I bore witness for Chris. And this is the kind of intervention we want faculty to do. When you're on a trip with your colleagues and one of them gets pulled aside, you do not just go on to your gate. You bear witness, and you've learned to do this because you've gone through our workshops and you know how to interrupt systemic oppression, whichever social identity it chooses to land on. You've developed a wide lens through doing this work. So we are really into this work, but we also understand the work is in its adolescence, right? We haven't completed anything. This is why it is an ongoing transformation project. We are trying to learn new ways of relating with each other and with our students, and certainly with management. And you'll see this as we see some new ways of engaging with bargaining as were introduced yesterday. Central to the work of the council are caucuses. And we have 9 caucuses now that allow faculty the opportunity to meet up with others who also have experiences that resonate with your own. This might be in the Women's Caucus. It might be in the LGBTQIA+ caucus. It might be in the Native Indigenous caucus. It might be in the Chicanx Latinx caucus, right? So we have all these caucuses that express multiple identities, but then we also understand that there are some caucuses that allow us to express our more intersectional identities. And we know that being intersectional means really broadening this understanding of our connections with each other. So you'll see later on in our schedule for, and I know Tri-Chair is going to talk about this, for the Equity Conference, that there'll be an opportunity to come to these caucuses. If you've not been before, it's a great opportunity to meet some other folks that you would like to connect with across all the CSUs. So I've mentioned alternatives to policing. That was one of the things we fought for in our last bargaining. And we are reopening again on health and safety. And we know this is a big lift because, again, people come with different lens into our workplace, into the campus. And so it's going to be a big lift to try to get everyone to understand why policing is problematic on our campuses. And so I hope that you will help us with that work. If police for you represents safety and protection, I hope that you can hear from the experience of some of the rest of us why they are seen as really bringing the violence, not resolving the violence. So I don't think I have anything more. Chris, if you want to add anything.
Yes, thank you. I do want to just add a little bit to so many of the wonderful points that you've brought up, Sharon. I think one of the things is that the Equity Conference, when we originally created the Equity Conference as CFA, this is part of the purpose for which it's created, to provide a space for us to delve into these kinds of topics, use this as a creative way to think about how do we actually shape the direction of our broader work in our fight for racial and social justice as a labor union working for just conditions for us as working people. And so to that end, the Equity Conference was originally up until 2020, it was something that occurred every other year. It occurred in even years. And so it was always in person, as you remember, before COVID, everything we did was in person. And so now we have a recognition, and definitely one of the things about COVID is that it did bring us the opportunity to try out this format for our conferences, for some of our work. And so our plan moving forward is to have an annual Equity Conference with in-person Equity Conferences in the even years and with online Equity Conferences in the odd years. And part of the value of doing both types of formats is that there are some things that are easier to do. They lend themselves a little bit better to being in person and having that in-person kind of more traditional conference style structure. And then there are also some advantages that we've had to having these online forums for our Equity Conference as well. And one of the things that for myself that I think is particularly advantageous is the fact that we've been able to have some amazing sessions recorded and posted to our CalFAC webpage, where we have within the Council for Racial and Social Justice page, multiple video links. We have a social justice study hall where a lot of this work can live on, and it can impact members who may not have been able to participate at the time, people who may not be able to physically show up at a time when we're having a physical Equity Conference. But I think it's a way to kind of keep us deeply engaged in the work and for us to develop as a union kind of a broad base of resources that we can turn to internally to help us, figure out a variety of the challenges that we face, including figuring out creative and new ways to work together, to collaborate, to enact the power of our stories, to put our stories forward as a means of us basically doing our work and propelling ourselves to those goals that we want to achieve. And so for that reason, I really hope that you all will, kind of appreciate what we're able to do this year, as well as to, really put your own kind of thoughts and attention towards how we grow in the future. And so on that note, I'll turn it back to you, Sharon, and or to Audrina. Thank you.
Go, Audrina.
Wow. Listening to you all, what it sounds like is what I know to be true, which is that we do a lot, that there's a lot of work happening, and that work is really toward proaction, right? We want to not be reactive, we want to be proactive in creating the kind of university and the kind of union in which we all want to work. Yeah, yeah. And that's what makes it, well, for me anyway, that's what makes it a joy to work for CFA and to work with my faculty. I call you my faculty, who are scholar activists. And so with that, we'll move to hearing from our tri-chairs, Talitha Matlin, Nick Centino, and Aparna Sinha, who are going to just tell us a little bit about this equity conference, what we have to look forward to, and any other comments they'd like to make for us. And so I'm going to turn it over to them.
Yeah, let's go ahead and do our vocalize for the three of us, and then I can talk a little bit about our themes. I can do the first vocalize. So good afternoon, everyone. My name is Nicolas Centino. I am a mixed race man with a dark colored shirt projected onto a dark background, and I have headphones. Talitha, do you want to do your vocalize?
Good morning, everyone. I'm Talitha Matlin, the STEM librarian at CSU San Marcos. I'm a biracial white and Vietnamese American cis woman in my 40s. I wear glasses and have medium length dark hair up in a bun. My pronouns are she and her. And then Aparna.
Hi, everyone. I'm Aparna Sinha. I am an associate professor at CSU Maritime Academy. I am a brown woman wearing cat eye glasses and a red dress.
Great. Thank you, Talitha and Aparna. Also wanted to share my pronouns. It's he, him, and there was a request in the chat. So I am a mixed race. Here we go. Filipino, Korean, Mexican, and Yaqui descent. So I would love to be able to share with you all our conference theme. So I believe we do have a visual, so we can go ahead and have that as something available for you all to look at. So if we can go ahead and pull up our slides for this part of our session, that would be great. Our Equity Conference 2023 themes continue to explore resident themes that we introduced in our 2022 conference that you can see here. As you can see, we will strive to envision a radical future where we identify and dismantle systems of oppression. We will strategize the steps we need to take to realize that future. The future must actively address the dynamics of oppression, privilege, and isms, and recognizing that society is a product of historically rooted, institutionally sanctioned stratification along socially constructed group lines that include race, class, gender, sexual orientation, and ability. Now, these themes we are carrying over from last year's conference, but I did want to note that as we were initially planning this conference, it coincided with the coming to light of the racist, anti-Black, and anti-Indigenous rhetoric being espoused by members of the Los Santos City Council. As such, we wanted to ensure that we addressed anti-Blackness and anti-Indigeneity in the CSU system for this equity conference, not just from a position of allyship, but from the position of co-conspirator, of being co-conspirators to address these forms of hatred and violence. As co-conspirators in CFA, we will need to envision together what future we want for ourselves, our students, and our communities. And once we know where we want to go, we need to strategize for how we will achieve this co-liberation. In doing so, we must first uncover and uncover invisible as well as hypervisible labor in the CSU. And in order to sustain ourselves in this work, we need to engage in care and healing justice for ourselves, our students, and our community. So these are our themes for this year. I would love to pass it over next to Aparna.
So let me tell you about our amazing keynote speakers. Can we go to the next slide, Kiki? Okay, awesome. So today we have our very first keynote speaker, Andrea Ritchie. She is a leading expert on policing and criminalization and the author of Invisible No More: Police Violence Against Black Women and Women of Color, and co-author of No More Police, A Case for Abolition. The criminalization of LGBT people in the US. She's been documenting, organizing, advocating, litigating, and agitating around policing and criminalization of Black women, girls, trans, and gender nonconforming people for the past 3 decades. She will be talking and giving a dynamic presentation on organizing, advocating, and litigating against policing and the criminalization of Black women, girls, and trans and gender nonconforming people for past 3 decades. So this is our today's keynote. And then on Thursday, we have Manisha or Mo Miller. She is a criminal justice scholar and a childhood adversity expert. I know several of you already know her. She serves as the lecturer representative at CSU Fullerton. She's the CFA AVP lecturer, South, and tri-chair of Women X Caucus. Her presentation, Finding Our Way to Community Justice Strategies. She will be discussing strategies to engage communities in reconciliation and healing to address conflict and historical trauma-based division. And then we end on Saturday, we have Yvonne Wheeler. She's the president of the Los Angeles County Federation of Labor and the vice chair of the California Democratic Labor Party Caucus. She's the first Black woman to hold the position and will oversee the organization of 300 affiliated unions and over 800,000 members. Her discussion will center the vision for the future of labor organizing and addressing equity and justice with an anti-racism and social justice lens. So I hope you will come back on Saturday for this keynote session. It's titled Unions and for Everyone. And if you have missed on registering on any of these sessions and you're like, oh, I think I didn't register to this one, I encourage you to go back to the registration link and you can still re-register. I'm going to pass it on to Talitha now.
Thanks, Aparna, for that overview of our keynotes. What I want to give everyone now is an overview of the rest of our program. And like Aparna said, even for today's sessions, if you haven't yet registered in some of these that we'll review pique your interest, please go back and register so that you can get the Zoom link for today's session. So our full program highlights the work of people from within and outside of the CSU who will speak to our conference narrative and themes. Today, we're going to hear from Ariana Brown in an artist talk where she'll use poetry and research to consider how cis, heteropatriarchy, and white supremacy inform the construction of cultural and national identities. This afternoon, we'll learn from education and youth advocate Melissa Morgan about how to tell our anti-racism social justice stories, which will surely be something that we can take with us into our campuses as we re-enter bargaining. Closing out today are Marissa Salinas and Juan Santos from CSU San Marcos, who will speak to our theme of strategies for co-liberation as they discuss work that they do as CSU faculty in the local San Marcos community and schools. So a really good example for us to all learn from about how we can take our work and bring it into our local communities. Tomorrow, we'll start off with a presentation from Students for Quality Education. And these students are constantly inspiring me and I'm learning for them all the time. So I hope people can come to their session where they'll be speaking about how they're leading the way on important system-wide issues such as Title IX and policing on campus. In the afternoon, we'll bring back Imani Barberin for the second year, where she will highlight the importance of disability justice movement that takes an intersectional approach. In the evening, we'll host a film screening of Singing Our Way to Freedom about Ramon Chunky Sanchez, a leading musician of the Chicano civil rights movement. And following the screening, we'll have the chance to engage with the director, Paul Espinosa, in a discussion of the film, which should be really interesting. And an opportunity we don't often have to engage with the creators of these documentaries.
Talitha, I can talk a little bit about some of the Saturday highlights as well.
Sure,
Actually, the
great.
Friday highlights. So
Wonderful.
on Friday we have another great day of speakers and sessions, starting with Diane Fugino speaking to Asian American solidarity with Black and other communities. The lunchtime session will be broken into 2 parts, with the first half featuring our Asian Pacific Islander Jersey American Caucus, Black Caucus, Latinx Caucus, Native American and Indigenous Peoples Caucus, and Palestine Arab and Muslim Caucus. And the second half featuring the LGBTQIA+, teacher ed, disabilities, and women caucuses. We hope that you'll be able to attend these sessions to learn more about how you can become involved with the caucuses and the anti-racism and social justice work of CFA.
Okay, and we would like you all to sit with this quote. It's an important quote, and this is our quote for our conference, and kind of marinate over it the whole conference. It's a quote by Bell Hooks. Solidarity is not the same as support. To experience solidarity, we must have a community of interest, shared beliefs, and goals around which to unite. Support can be occasional. It can be given and just as easily withdrawn. Solidarity requires sustained, ongoing commitment. And that is what we want to think about. We want to build solidarity. We want to co-conspire together as a CFA community.
As we do that work, there are so many opportunities in this conference for us to learn new things, for us to have different aha moments, for us to make some notes. I remember last year, I had tons of notes. I had unexpected notes, even though, I was part of the team doing the work to create the conference, and I had prepped everyone and spoken to folks and watched videos of the different speakers and read different things that they've written. I still had a ton of aha moments from last year, and I am really, really looking forward to the same this year. So I'm wondering, of our tri-chairs, what is it that you are personally looking forward to in this year's conference? Anyway,
I can share first. So on Saturday we have Yvonne Wheeler giving her presentation, but after that we're going to hear from a dynamic panel of Black and Indigenous community organizers affiliated with Black Lives Matter and CLO. So among them, Melina Abdullah, who's been an amazing member here at CFA, and they're going to share their ongoing collaboration effort in the wake of those inflammatory comments made by the 3 LA City Council members and the former head of the LA County Federation of Labor. So I'm really looking forward to that one.
Mm-hmm. What about you, Aparna?
I'm really looking forward to all of the keynote speakers, but on Friday, I think I feel like I need more education on disability justice. So I'm really looking forward to Alex Locust adopting a disability justice framework.
Mm-hmm.
I think I will learn something new from it. But also, every year I feel like, oh, I'm gonna listen to this session and this will be great. And then I end up liking totally a different session. So I am looking forward to all of the sessions.
Me too. Exactly. Yeah. What about you, Talitha?
So on, again, all of the sessions look amazing, and I know I'll be surprised to learn every day, which is something that has happened in every equity conference I've been to so far, just serendipitous learning that I wasn't expecting, which I take with me and carry with me like through this day. But specifically on Friday, there are 2 sessions that I'm really looking forward to. So the closing session on Friday with Lynn Bose-Berry, who will be doing like a bystander intervention presentation or training for us, that Sharon was mentioning earlier about how important it is that what our interruption practice statement is. And I think this is going to further deepen our ability to do this, not just in our work with each other, on our campuses and our communities, but as we go out as individuals in this world. And then also, I'm really looking forward to Diane Fugino's talk on Asian American solidarity with Black and other communities. As I said, I'm biracial white and Vietnamese American. I'm always interested in focused on how anti-Blackness and anti-indigeneity shows up in my own community, like my home communities, because it's a hard conversation to have with our families, with the people who we're around all the time, people who we care about, who've been through hard things, who are marginalized themselves, about how the construct of whiteness is so appealing for so many people, and how that is inherently divisive and anti-Black and anti-Indigenous. So how can we make sure that we're working all together in this? And so I'm looking forward to learning from her and the work that she's done.
Yeah, I hear you. You know, as I say, having worked with y'all and prepared this list of speakers and prepped with them and watched and listened and talked to them, how do you choose what it is that you're most excited about? But really, when I tell you that Melissa Morgan's presentation this afternoon on telling your anti-racism and social justice story will be dynamic, it will be. I've seen her give this presentation before, and it's so energizing. It reminds us, it gives us tools to do exactly what you were just talking about, Talitha, which is how do we tell the story? How do we develop what it is we want to say in a way that fits us, in a way that's comfortable for us, and in a way that is accessible for people who may not be in where you are with your awareness about anti-racism and social justice. So that presentation is this afternoon let me correct myself, at 3 o'clock. So encourage folks to be there for that. I'm also today super excited and looking forward to the talk with Marisa Salinas and Juan Santos. You want to talk about people who are doing the work of being scholar activists and actually being intertwined in the communities that the universities serve. This is the work that they're doing, focusing on immigrant communities, not just the students, but the parents, engaging them, bringing the university to the people, rather than the university being this sort of ivory tower thing. Also, their work encompasses people who are re-entering. And what that re-entering word means is people who are now formally incarcerated. We know that is we're not always the best with making sure that we are welcoming back to people who have, sometimes been victim of injustice, and sometimes all the time have come back to the world, so to say. And so I'm looking forward to that talk to them. I have wanted to know more about their work for a very long time, so that they were available for this conference is absolutely thrilling to me. I'm also personally looking forward to the conversation on Thursday about community justice strategies, that one with Mo Miller. That one is tomorrow at 3 o'clock, tomorrow, Thursday at 3 o'clock. And then why am I looking forward to that? Because it is the ongoing struggle, right? It is what co-liberation is about, which is figuring out, how do we relate to each other? How do we call each other in, invoking Loretta Ross and Lone Tran, who we had at last year's conference. How do we call each other in to conversation? How do we hear with an ear toward, we really are wanting to work together? That's the point, because if we fail to work together, then what we will do for sure is fail together. So we have to remember to work together. There's a lot of good stuff this year. Hope that you all are registered for those things. If you want to take another look at the registration link and register for some things, you can do that. The registration link is on the landing page, which has been dropped into the chat for you. And if you want to change your mind, anything, you will have to re-register. Unfortunately, there's no way to access your existing registration to make any edits. You would just be re-registering. So I hope you all do that. And do remember to share the link, encourage others to come to participate in this equity conference. It really does give you the vision of what we are and what we're talking about when we talk about what anti-racism and social justice is for CFA. So I'm wondering, tri-chairs, is there anything else that you want to share with folks about this year's equity conference?
Did we mention the journal? I know we talked a bit about taking notes and everything, but just making sure Kiki dropped into the chat the landing page, and that has a bunch of resources there that you may be interested in, including the journal where you can keep notes, and there are some prompts there for some of the sessions.
We also have CEUs this year. We have continuing education units. And again, the information about that is on the landing page also. We are offering those CEUs as a CFA benefit. So once you actually attend sessions and then register for the CEUs with proof of your session attendance, CFA will reimburse the cost of those CEUs, which is $75. So for those of you who registered for the CEUs, please remember to do the second part so that we can then do our part. Also, we've got a great book vendor this year. Many of our speakers have publications that you are able to purchase. And our book vendor this year is called Reparations Club, which is a Black-owned and woman-owned bookstore in Los Angeles. And they, so please check out that link. There's a 10% discount for anything that you might purchase with them.
And the discount code is on the landing page. It's Equity 2023 for 10% off.
Yeah. Anything else?
Well, we're really excited about the conference, and I hope you all attend as many sessions as you can, because it's just going to be a fabulous conference. Lots of learning, lots of things to think about.
Yeah. So we also, we're coming up next, unless there's something else. Sharon, Chris, Charles, you have anything else you want to share, you'd like to share with folks?
I'm busy printing out the journals so I can write things down as I'm going through these sessions. I'm very excited about Ariana Brown coming up next, modeling intersectionality in one body.
Yeah. Yeah. I almost wish we had named her session that. That's a cool title. What about you, Chris, Charles?
No, like everyone else, I'm just looking forward to all of the sessions, and we have one at 11:30.
I agree. I'm excited for what's to come. Looking forward to being in the spaces with all of you.
Yeah. All right, folks. Well, thank you so much for being here. I hope you feel welcomed into the conference. That is what we meant to happen today. And we'll see y'all at 11:30. Peace and blessings.